The unconscious contents responsible for the disturbances of consciousness are what Jung called complexes. They are the energy clusters residing in the personal unconscious and their roots going deep into the collective unconscious, hence ultimately influenced by archetypal contents. Since the complexes are unconscious contents, they have a tendency to behave independently or autonomously so that the individual may feel that his behavior is out of his control. Jung uses the term Constellation of Complexes, which usually refers to the creation of a psychologically charged moment, a moment where consciousness is about to become disturbed by a complex. And when a complex is constellated, one is threatened with loss of control over one's emotion and to some extent also one's behavior. This loss of control is clearly visible in neurotic patients. The complexes have energy and manifest a sort of electronic spin of their own, like the electrons surrounding the nucleus of an atom. When they are stimulated by a situation or an event, they give up a burst of energy and jump levels until they arrive in consciousness. Their energy penetrates the shell of ego consciousness and floods into it, thereby influencing it to spin in the same direction and to discharge some of the emotional energy that has been released by this collision. When this happens, the ego is no longer altogether in control of consciousness, or for that matter, of the body. The person becomes subject to energetic discharges that are not under the ego's control. The complexes can be thought of as personality fragments or subpersonalities. Since complexes possess a type of consciousness of their own, a person who is incomplex is in a state of a possession by a different personality. But in general, the complexes have less energy than the ego has, and they show only minimal consciousness of their own. The ego, in contrast, has considerable energy and will at its disposal, as it is the primary center of consciousness. And in this sense, the ego can be considered as a complex, a very powerful complex. Complexes can be considered as quasi-instinctive rather than truly instinctive. They act like instincts in that they produce spontaneous reactions to particular situation or persons, but they are not purely innate in the same way that instincts are. Mostly they are products of experience, trauma, family interactions, patterns, and cultural conditioning. These are combined with some innate elements present in the collective unconscious, which Jung calls archetypal images, to make up the total package of the complex. Complexes are created by trauma. Prior to the trauma, the archetypal piece exists as an image and a motivating force, but does not have the same disturbing and anxiety-producing qualities of the complex. The trauma creates an emotionally charged memory image that becomes associated with an archetypal image, and together, this frees into a more or less permanent structure. This structure contains a specific amount of energy, and with this, it can tie in other associated images to create a network. Thus, a complex becomes enriched and extended by later experiences of a similar sort. Jung argues that dreams are made out of complexes, that is, the complexes are the architects of our dreams. Dreams present images, patterns, repetition, and themes that gives us a picture of what a person's complexes look like. Jung also argues that when unconscious contents break through into consciousness, it can lead to increased development in the individual. Since the tendency of the unconscious is to compensate for what the ego consciousness is lacking, it helps to bring about a better balance to the individual and enable further development of the psyche.